Blackmagic launched the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K at a funny time. It's a desirable product on paper, offering raw 4K video recording, a much improved touch display, and professional audio and video features. However, it's arriving when competition from video-friendly mirrorless cameras is fierce. If you're more into photography and just dabble with video, or if you're a vlogger, then it's probably not for you. But if you're a serious video creator, it's a different story. It offers uncompromising video quality, professional features, and is surprisingly easy to use. And it also costs a lot less than those other aforementioned mirrorless cameras. Considering that it's missing features like in-body stabilization and continuous autofocus, why is this such a desirable camera for video producers? Well, specs don't tell this whole story, so let's walk through how you typically use it. First off, it takes micro four thirds lenses. I've got the Leica 12-60 model that's sold by Panasonic. The battery life is not very good on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K, so luckily it does come with standard Canon batteries. The Pocket Cinema camera supports both SD UHS 2 cards and CFast cards, so you have two options. And also, via the USB Type-C port, you can connect an external SSD, so there's really a lot of ways you can record. Unfortunately, you can only record to one medium at a time, so if you want to have a backup, you'd have to use the HDMI output. Alright, so let's power it on with the button on the top, and we'll go ahead and start shooting. So the first thing I'm going to want to do here is select what type of format I want to record in. So I access the menu button, and I can select either RAW or ProRes. So I'm going to go ahead and select ProRes, and you've got other options to select here. I'm going to choose Ultra HD, so that's just regular 4K. You see here, if I swipe up and down the screen, I can get the on-screen display on or off. The screen is pretty sensitive, it's quite responsive. Also, even in bright light, it's pretty easy to see what's going on. To avoid going to the back screen all the time, you've got buttons for ISO, shutter, and white balance. And there's also 3 function buttons and a number of buttons on the back for high frame rate, menu, and so on. So the next step now is I want to set up the camera so that the settings are the way I want. So first we're going to choose the frame rate. So 25 frames per second is what I want, but you can go all the way up to 60 frames per second. And if you use the off-speed mode, then you can go all the way up to 120 frames per second. Next up, we can set the shutter speed. And you can see I can activate all these controls just by clicking on the screen. And then we can go to the iris, and we can change that on the screen here. So there's really only one dial on this camera, and it's for the aperture for the iris. All right, and then next up, I'm going to go ahead and change the ISO setting. So ISO goes all the way up to 25,600 and all the way down to 100. So there's a good range there. In regular lighting conditions, you can expect to get anywhere up to 6400 ISO. You're going to get very clean images. And surprisingly, even beyond that, if I go up to even all the way up to 25,600, I would call the images usable. And that's in large part due to the so-called dual ISO system that it has. That, if you'll recall, that's very similar to what Panasonic does with the GH5S. Even though it's called the Pocket Cinema Camera, obviously this camera is not going to fit into your pocket. It's a lot bigger than the last model. But that said, it's still a lot more compact than most video cameras. And I'm not sure that I would trust this camera to hold up in seriously bad weather conditions either. So all told, I find that the BMPCC 4K is a pretty good handling camera, pretty easy to shoot with in general. And because of the touchscreen part, I find it's easier to get the hang of it. If you can picture your typical video camera from Sony or Red, there are buttons everywhere on the side and it takes a long time to master it. I really found that this camera didn't take me so long to learn how to use it. So if you're a professional producer or serious creator, you really should consider the Blackmagic Pocket 4K Cinema Camera.